Up front, Dietrich Weiss, Christian Barmore, Devin Godshaw, Lawrence Guy. This has been a really solid front four for them. Just a bunch of big boys that eat up space. And when you're looking at the numbers, these guys, they really run a defense that tries to keep the linebackers clean. And they have the 4-3 defense where their outside linebackers are doing a lot of the pass rushing. So you don't really see gaudy numbers from these guys. Um, but what they do with the defense and what they're able to free up for the second level, for the third level of the defense, is really where their value are. And I think because of that reason, some of these guys get a little bit underrated. But overall, I think it's a really solid front four. Um, and then the linebackers that we talked about, Josh Uche come back, Matt Judon, who they signed last year, and Jawan Bentley. And I think this is a really, really good linebacking core. Josh Uche, I believe he had some injuries last year, but he was looking really good 2 years ago. Obviously, they bring in Matt Judon last year, and he was an absolute force. 12 and a half sacks in his first year with the team. So can't argue with that production there. And I think we're going to see much more of the same. Like I said, this defense likes to use those outside linebackers to get to the quarterback. So I think we end up seeing another monster year from Matt Judon. I don't know if I'm willing to say 12 and a half again, but I mean, it was also his first year in the system, and now he's in the second year of it, and we'll see what happens there. But that's a guy that you always got to be keeping an eye on, and he can, two plays hitting the quarterback, forcing a fumble, forcing a bad pass, and that can change the tide of an entire game. So his value to that defense is huge. And then in the secondary, this is a place where they've made some additions, but they also had some subtractions. And last year, part of the spending spree, brought in Jalen Mills. He's not a player that I've ever really loved at cornerback. I think he's I think he's a good cornerback. I think he's a little bit overrated, and they gave him a pretty good sized contract. And playing against across from J.C. Jackson, I think they had a pretty good secondary there. Um, but you let J.C. Jackson walk this year, and you bring back Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler. Obviously he had a pretty good tenure with New England his first time around. Everybody's going to remember him from that Seattle Super Bowl game-winning interception. Um, but I feel like he's been a pretty average cornerback since he left, got a good contract, and we're talking what's that Seattle Super Bowl is like 6-7 years ago now, and you're kind of dipping back into that player pool of somebody I think it would be a nice move if you were bringing him in for depth and you still had J.C. Jackson here. I just I don't the move doesn't do anything to make me think that they improved in the position or even maintain their floor. And then similar move bringing back Devin McCourty. It's a guy who's had a great run with the Patriots, but getting up there in age, and I I think there is something to be said for the continuity, I guess, the player recognition in the system. Knowing the team, knowing how Belichick likes to run it, having that leader. I think it's kind of time to move away from some of those guys and bring in younger pieces. Um, do have Kyle Duggar on the back end as well, who's a player I love him as a player. Um, Kind of that positionless linebacker safety. He'll help in the run, he'll help in the pass, and I think they have a really good player in Duggar. Um, so overall, New England's the hardest one for me to really get a grasp on because we saw the run that they had last year, finishing second in the division. Um, I could see them being anywhere from second in the division to being fourth in the division, and I mean a lot of it has to do with the play of Mac Jones and if he takes a step. I think I think for New England there's a little bit less pressure of the quarterback position is going to make or break this team because of who Belichick is as a coach. You know, we saw them be competitive with Cam Newton, and Cam Newton was an absolute shell of his former self. He could still run the ball a little bit, but he really brought nothing in the passing game, and I think they still won 6, 7 games, um, doing that experiment. So whereas I think a team like New York has, and maybe we'll see it be a little bit different with Salah coming in. But I think there's so much more riding on the quarterback position in New York than New England because I give Belichick the vote of confidence that with his coaching, with his game planning, with the defense that he's going to bring in, they're going to be competitive in games, and Mac Jones can be that. I don't like the term, but I don't know a better term for it right now. The game managing quarterback, make a couple plays when we need them, and be smart and safe with the ball, and we're going to be in a good spot. So I have New England at 3. I think they could move up or down, but we'll see. We'll see how the games play.